All right. Well, we're going to have a little debate here about whether or not the government should be buying data on you instead of spying on you. Because why bother doing the spying when private companies can do it and the government can just buy the data? We're going to have a discussion about whether or not it's right for, let's say, the government to buy this private data if other companies are. Why shouldn't they get in on the fun, right? Or is that a violation of the Fourth Amendment, which protects you from unreasonable and unwanted and unwarranted search and seizure? So let's give that some thought. I'll leave you with that think, please. Just think about it for a second. Like, if Target's buying information about you, shouldn't the government? I don't know. Think about it for a second. But first, I want to remind you that it has been 10 years since Edward Snowden brought us the revelation that our government was spying on us. In fact, it's almost been exactly 10 years because Edward Snowden's birthday is in late June. It was on his 30th birthday when he revealed all of this stuff and moved abroad and never to return. And so that happened in 2013, 10 years ago in June. So here we are. What have we learned? We've learned that the government is pretty unabashed. They never really apologized. They made some sort of perfunctory changes like, yeah, we shouldn't have done that. We should have got warrants. We, went and just took what was there without really thinking about it. But now it seems we have a new revelation from a new document that's just been released. It is redacted, but it was written last year. And it's showing that the government doesn't have to spy on us anymore because they can just buy this data. According to a new report, it comes out from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. The U.S. intelligence community is purchasing data on consumers to just get around the restrictions on spying for it. This report was unclassified recently. It is redacted. And I said new, I meant it's not that new. It was written last year. So this data, what we're talking about here is called CAI, or commercially available information. So I'm just going to refer to it from now on as CAI. Okay. It can reveal sensitive and intimate information about individuals. So this means that when companies track, let's say, your purchase history, your location data, your browser history, all of that stuff, and you're like, who's selling it? Well, we know, right, that we are giving up some control of our data when we sign up for certain apps. Even if we turn on the most minute security features, we're still being tracked. Most of us know this, right? This should come as a surprise to nobody. But we know that a lot of times these third parties use this data and sell it to other companies or share it with other companies or something like that. Now, it's supposed to be randomized, but the government has the ability to de-autonomize it, meaning they know, they can figure out who it's connected to, right? So why then would the government go and build expensive platforms, expensive software, go spying on you and then get called out like Edward Snowden did and have egg on their face when they can just buy it? Here's a little bit from that report. It talks about how CAI may be anonymized, but it is possible to de-anonymize and identify individuals, including U.S. persons. They say it's a resource available to the general public, including adversaries. So, if they don't buy it, then foreign governments could,
so
right?
Two wrongs make a right. In their opinion, right?
Again, I'm not saying what's right or wrong. We're presenting you with this information and we can have a discussion about it. CAI also raises counterintelligence risk because other companies can buy it too. They can see what's in Joe Biden's Amazon cart, right? What's on his Peloton. Remember the time I told you I got a high five from Joe Biden on Peloton?
Yeah.
All of that stuff, right? They can see it. It also has increasingly important risks and implications for U.S. persons' privacy and civil liberties, as CAI can reveal sensitive and intimate information about individuals. Without proper control, CAI can be misused to cause substantial harm, embarrassment, and inconvenience to U.S. persons. So here's why this is a problem. It says because there is already case law that shows that acquisition of persistent location information concerning one person by law enforcement from communications providers is a Fourth Amendment search. that generally requires probable cause. So they can just collect data on you without probable cause when that is a violation of the Fourth Amendment. Says the same type of information on millions of Americans is openly for sale, though, to the general public. So here's the conundrum. If the general public can use it, right? If Target can buy up data in order to better target ads to you, which they do. We've seen them before, right? If you buy a pregnancy test, they then are going to start to try to sell you baby stuff. If you've been in and around one area, they take location data, everything. So if companies can use it to sell to you, then should the government have the same rights to buy it? Well, here's some things that may, if you're like, well, it's out there, someone's selling it, the government would probably want it too, right? But this is our government we're talking about. So we're trusting them to use it for benevolent purposes.
Yeah.
And then also, this is your tax dollars being spent to spy and collect data on you, which you may say, okay, again, but if it's available for purchase, shouldn't the government have one too? If other countries can get it, if these think tanks can get it, if it's just out there. One of the problems pointed out in Nicole Perlroth's book, This Is How They Tell Me the World Ends, is that a lot of times when governments buy up these databases, they are buying them in duplicate. So let's say this is the way it works for software bugs. So let's say there's a software bug that allows somebody to get into your email and read your email from now on. And the government becomes aware of this, what they call a 0-day. It's a software vulnerability. And they say, we want that. We want to own it. Either we're going to use it or we're going to own it so nobody else can use it. And they'll buy it. And so they buy a 0-day from a hacker. And maybe the FBI buys it, right? Because they think we should have this. And then they don't share it with other government agencies because it's classified. So then the CIA becomes aware of that and they buy the same 0-day. And then the NSA becomes aware of it and they buy the same 0-day. So what can and absolutely does happen is that millions of your tax dollars are being spent to buy these duplicate software vulnerabilities for whatever reason. And they don't know. There's no way for us to really know how many duplicate 0-days have been purchased. So it's naive of us to think that multiple government agencies are not also buying up these CAI databases. Of course they are. And so if they are doing that, there's no protocol for doing it. There's no budget for doing it. They just do it. Then most likely you are buying these databases multiple times. So those are some things to think about.
You, the taxpayer.
If you're not American, maybe this is not your problem, but you can probably be pretty sure that if you live in the West, your government's doing this. I don't know about Eastern countries, but usually what the U.S. does, the EU does, and the UK does. Yeah,
and it's somebody in our chat just says all internet traffic flows through Frankfurt, Germany. So, I mean, and I think, David, you were talking about this. Most of I think in Europe it does, and I think it all flows through the United States, right? I mean, a huge.
Yes, yeah. We talked about this recently, how pretty much everything flows through the United States. So these bills that give the government power to regulate all traffic on the internet would be for everybody, not just the United States.
Think about the story too, where we were listening in on the phone of Germany Prime Minister. Like, we have access to everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we were listening in on Angela Merkel. Obama had to apologize for spying on Angela Merkel.
Yes.
Yeah. So if we have that technology, I mean, we can pretty much connect to anything we need to. I mean, when we were doing attacks over in foreign countries, we're using cell data to target the targets.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And we don't even need to use even more nefarious software. All we need to use is WhatsApp, right? I mean, the Pegasus software out of Israel that manages to go into everyone's phones. All they need is to use, if you have WhatsApp on your phone, they can send you a text message. Or they can even send you a phone call from an unknown caller. If you answer it, that's all they need. Now they have total access of your phone. So if you have WhatsApp on your phone, never, ever, ever click on a link from somebody that you don't know. And don't answer the phone from an unknown caller if you have WhatsApp on your phone.
Well, Shadow Rider in the chat says they're a spy, so they can tell us how this is done.
Yeah, I guess so.
In our midst. But I think that this is an interesting question, right? Should the government do it if everybody else is going to? Right? Should and
No,
so
the answer is
what
no.
Senator Wyden is saying, this is a violation of the Fourth Amendment. Yeah. We absolutely cannot trust them to use this for benevolent purposes, and we need some sort of open source communication about it where it's not being purchased in duplicate, and we need to know how they're going to do it, why they're doing it, and what they're collecting.
I want to go back.
I don't think we're going to get that.
I want to go back to the Fourth Amendment piece and your law that you mentioned, which was like what, Carpenter versus the United States or whatever, that said this is illegal search and seizure. But under what circumstances would that come up? You'd have to file, it'd have to be a lawsuit, right? So Americans would have to file a lawsuit against Target, or you'd have to know about it first.
Yes.
Right? I mean, how do you know about it first to find out that it's a crime? And
well, not Target, the government, right? Like, why are you, the government, collecting my location data? And it would have to.
The Restrict Act coming up, so they need all that information, because how are they going to know all your transactions? Like they literally want to track every transaction, every phone call, everything, so that they can have your social credit score and they can shut you off if you don't do what they want. So it's like. And there's going to be all kinds of things in that bill, I'm sure, to protect corporations from being sued for giving them the information, because we've seen that with the vaccines and stuff.
Well, here's another question, though. If you're saying, no, this is illegal search and seizure, it's a violation of the Fourth Amendment. But who's to say then that an adversary doesn't buy this data and exploit it? And so,
but are we led to believe there's one copy? Like there's only one copy, and they're buying the hard drive with it on there? Of course not. So even if even
if it's duplicated, though, you want to know what your adversaries have, right? If it's out there, I mean, you can't, unless you slap rules on the companies that track this data and say you cannot sell this to any government entity. They're going to get around that by just selling to a think tank associated with the government.
Yeah, and the way that I look at it is, if our government has stuff, there are way smarter people in the shadows that have more than them. So that stuff is out there already anyway. If you have a device that tracks anything, you have a computer, you have an account with any company, you're out there. There's nothing you can do. And there are people that know way more than the people that we're worried about that have that data.
Yeah, that's one of the things that tipped off Edward Snowden, is when he was working in Hawaii, he was given an assignment to do a report about how China can spy on its own citizens. And he's doing this report and he's like, there's no way we know all of this, as he was doing his research of what was already known inside the NSA. And he's like, there's no way we know all of this and we're not doing it too. And that sent him digging, and he knew he would find it, and he found it fairly easily, is because he knew if one person's doing it, the other person's doing it too. So is it even, is it worth it for us to scream and shout about it? If everyone's going to do it, is it worth it for us then to say, okay, I need to educate myself further on how to lock myself down inside of these apps? I don't think that's completely possible. If you're going to use these apps, you're going to make yourself
there are smart ways to do it. There are smart ways to do it and protect yourself. It's very, very important to make sure you have like two-factor on a lot of things, and a lot of simple things, making sure that you're not storing passwords on your
no location data on your
messages.
on your messages, on your Facebook, on even for instance, like if I go out for a run, the apps that I use to track the run like to put a map of where I've been, and I tell them that that's not acceptable, like no location data and those kind of things. Turn off your cookies. There are ways to do it. But it's really hard unless you completely cut this digital leash.
Yeah, and I guess my thing is, like, I don't think we should fight them having it. Like, we don't want them to have it, but they're going to have it. Like, what we should fight is how they use it against us. Like, that's where we need to draw the lines. Okay, we need to fight like these bills, like the Restrict Act, that's going to use that data that we know they already have. Like, there's nothing we can do to stop the data collection. Nothing. We're on camera every day. It's out of control. But we can fight the legislation that they're trying to put forward to use it against us, to track us and stuff like that.
And to limit our ability to get a mortgage. Your carbon footprint is too large this month. You can't travel. You can't buy a car because of your social credit score, your carbon footprint. You can't eat meat because you've gone over your meat allotment of purchases this month from the grocery store with the money that we've given you using the FedNow digital currency program. Like, yeah, exactly. That's where this is headed.
Or, think about let's say you're susceptible for an audit because of your location data, right? They don't think that you were working in the places that you say you were working, or you wrote off too much mileage and your smartphone didn't move those mileage. Yeah, or you're off the grid, or using it to sort of weaponize or track you further for tax evasion or something like that. Not that you shouldn't be honest on your taxes. Absolutely, you should. But could this be used against you? And we already know in the piece we did with Tom Wheelwright that even if you're right, you're still wrong when you're fighting the IRS.
There's a comment on Rumble. Mr. Rye 22 says because people were talking about Microsoft and something nefarious with Microsoft, but Mr. Rye 22 says my Xbox turned on and updated itself while it was unplugged. What? Come on. My God. That's crazy. Is that real, Mr. Rye 22? I mean, I have, I'm willing to believe a lot of things, but is that really what happened?
Maybe unplugged from the internet. I could possibly, but I don't know how it could do without power like that.
Yeah.
But hey,
the aliens. All right. Well, let us know what you think of this, because it's a complicated story. It's great that we know this. And it's exactly what Edward Snowden warned about in his book, is that if the government can find a way to use private sector contractors, they will. They don't need to hire spies anymore if other companies will do it for them. So this is happening. And so, 10 years later, after Snowden, are we in a better place? Do you feel better about having gone 10 years? Are we?
No.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a tough anniversary of like, oh, wow, we've known this for 10 years. Was it worth it?
Yeah. Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.